A single gallon of kerosene weighs 6.5 pounds, costs $3.70 at any hardware store in America, and burns inside a properly tuned cotton wick for over 40 hours of clean, room-filling light, 40 hours, from 1 gallon. For less than $4, that same gallon, fed through 3 lanterns running side by side, lights a small farmhouse from sundown to bedtime for 12 to 14 nights. No wire, no fuse box, no utility bill, no outage, no technician. The fuel sits in a sealed jug under the sink and waits indefinitely for the moment the power fails, or the budget tightens, or the storm hits. This was the standard lighting system in American homes for over 80 years. Not the exception. Not the backup, the system. From the 1860s through the late 1930s, the kerosene lantern, also called the hurricane lamp, the Dietz lamp, or the cold blast lantern, was as common in an American kitchen as the iron stove and the cast iron pan. Every home had 2 or 3 of them. Every barn had 4. Every farmer carried one to the well at 4 in the morning. Then, in the span of a single decade, the same lanterns vanished. Not because they stopped working. They worked perfectly. They were shelved, replaced by a system designed not to be built, but to be billed, every month, forever. The American electric utility industry generates over $400 billion a year. Power generation, transmission, billing, regulation, and infrastructure. Combined, the United States grid is the single largest engineered system on the planet. And every house in the country pays into it every month for as long as that house exists. The average American household electric bill runs between $1,500 and $2,400 per year. Lighting and the always-on devices it requires account for somewhere between 15 and 30% of that total. That is roughly $200 a year, every year, just to keep the rooms visible after sunset. Over 30 years of homeownership, the typical American family pays the lighting industry between $6,000 and $8,000, just for the photons. The bulbs themselves are a separate cost. The average household replaces 20 to 40 bulbs a year, at $3 to $12 each, depending on type. That is another $60 to $400 annually, in perpetuity. Modern LED bulbs are advertised to last 25,000 hours. In practice, manufacturer testing and consumer reports show actual field life closer to 8,000 to 10,000 hours, often less. Failure is not a defect. Failure is the business model. Then there is the wiring itself. A modern home rewire costs between $8,000 and $15,000. New construction lighting installation runs $3,000 to $5,000. Electrical inspections, panel upgrades, outlet replacement, switch repair, and fixture replacement together pull another $200 to $400 from the average household every year. Add it together. $40,000 to $70,000 over a single mortgage, paid into the lighting and electrical industry, just for the privilege of having functional light after dark. The kerosene lantern alternative, a vintage brass and glass lantern. $3 to $10 at any estate sale or flea market. A new one. $20 to $30 at any farm supply store. A replacement wick. 60 cents. A gallon of fuel. $3.70. That gallon lasts 40 hours of running time, or roughly 50 to 70 nights of household use. It has no installation cost, no monthly bill, no bulb to replace. No fuse to flip, no service contract, no outage, no grid, no corporation between you and the light. The story begins in a single hotel room in Geneva, Switzerland, in December of 1924. In that room, executives from 7 of the largest electric lamp manufacturers in the world signed an agreement that would, almost a century later, become known as one of the most clearly documented industrial conspiracies in modern history. The agreement was called the Phoebus Cartel. The signatories included General Electric of the United States, Osram of Germany, Philips of the Netherlands, Tungsram of Hungary, and several others. Together, they controlled almost every light bulb sold in Europe, the United States, and the colonial world. The cartel had one explicit purpose: to shorten the lifespan of the standard incandescent bulb. From a working life of around 2,500 hours, which engineers had already achieved by 1924, down to a maximum of 1,000 hours. Any member factory that produced a bulb lasting longer faced fines, calculated by the percentage of overage. The internal documents, recovered in 1942 and confirmed by historians at the Smithsonian and the Max Planck Institute, are unambiguous. This was not market competition. This was coordinated planned obsolescence, written into the founding contracts of the modern lighting industry. The Phoebus Cartel officially dissolved in 1939. By then, the design philosophy was permanent. Every light bulb manufactured in the world after 1925 was deliberately engineered to fail within a fixed window, so that you would buy another, and another, and another, for the rest of your life. The kerosene and pressurized mantle lamps that had lit American homes for 80 years did not have this problem. A properly maintained Coleman pressure lamp from 1925 still works today. A Dietz hurricane lantern manufactured in 1890 will still light a barn tomorrow morning. The wicks are replaceable for 60 cents. The mantles cost $2. The lanterns themselves are functionally immortal. This was the threat. The same year the Phoebus Cartel was signed, the National Electric Light Association, the American Utility Lobby, increased its public relations budget to over $25 million in 1924 dollars. Adjusted for inflation, that is over $400 million in today's money. The campaign reframed kerosene lighting as primitive, dirty, dangerous, and obsolete. Home economics textbooks were rewritten. The Sears Roebuck catalog quietly dropped its lantern section after 1955. The Aladdin Mantle Lamp Company, which had sold over 4 million pressurized kerosene lamps to rural American households between 1908 and 1949, was edged out of major retail and reduced to a specialty supplier, not banned outright. Just never mentioned again in any home builder manual written after 1962. Never referenced in any public school science curriculum after 1970. Never compared side by side. In any consumer magazine that wanted to keep its electric utility advertisers, Livermore, California. Fire station number 6. There is a single carbon filament light bulb hanging from the ceiling of that station that has been burning almost continuously since 1901. That bulb is 124 years old. It was manufactured before the Phoebus Cartel existed. It has outlived every cartel signatory, every CEO. Every executive who signed the agreement to make sure the bulbs you buy today never reach that age. Guinness World Records has confirmed it. The bulbs still burns. The system has 4 components. Every one of them is available at any hardware store, farm supply, or estate sale in America. Combined, the entire setup costs between $14 and $40 and lights an average home indefinitely. Here is exactly what each component does, why it works, and how to put it together. Component 1. The lantern itself. There are 3 styles to know. The flat wick hurricane lantern, the round wick center draft lamp, and the pressurized mantle lamp. Each one fills a different role. The flat wick hurricane lantern, the classic Dietz or Feuerhand style, costs between $3 and $10 used or $20 new. It produces roughly 7 to 10 candle power. Enough to light a small room, a porch, a barn stall, or a workshop bench. The light is warm, steady, and yellow. The fuel consumption is low, around 1 ounce per hour. A single gallon of kerosene runs one of these lanterns for over 120 hours of continuous operation. The round wick center draft lamp, the kind your great-grandmother kept on the dining room table, produces 15 to 20 candle power. Enough to read by, sew by, do homework by. These cost $10 to $30 used. They burn through a gallon in roughly 40 to 50 hours. The pressurized mantle lamp, the Aladdin or Coleman style, is the brightest of the 3. A single Aladdin lamp produces 60 candle power, equivalent to a 60-watt incandescent bulb. It will light an entire room of any size. New mantle lamps run $60 to $120. Used Aladdins from the 1930s, fully restored, run $40 to $80 on collector markets. The physics is simple. A wick made of woven cotton draws fuel up by capillary action. The fuel evaporates at the top of the wick. The vapor mixes with air. The mixture burns. In a mantle lamp, the burning vapor heats a fabric mesh impregnated with rare earth oxides, usually thorium and cerium, until the mesh glows incandescent white. Same principle used by the Romans and the Greeks. Refined, scaled, and now ignored. Component 2. The fuel. Kerosene. Also sold as K1 kerosene, lamp oil, or paraffin oil in the United Kingdom. Available at any hardware store, Tractor Supply, Home Depot, or rural gas station. A gallon costs between $3 and $4.50. A single gallon will run a flat wick hurricane lantern for 120 hours. That is roughly 15 nights of household use, 8 hours per night. At $3.70 a gallon, the operating cost works out to 3 cents per hour of light. Compare that to the average American electric rate of 17 cents per kilowatt hour, with a 60-watt equivalent bulb running about 1 cent per hour. but only if you ignore the bulb cost, the wiring cost, the fixture cost, the meter fee, the delivery fee, and the franchise tax. The total operating cost of a kerosene lantern, including fuel, wick, and depreciation, is roughly 4 cents per hour of light. The total operating cost of an equivalent electrical setup, including all infrastructure prorated over a 30-year mortgage, is closer to 11 cents per hour. The kerosene system is cheaper, always has been. Store the fuel in a sealed metal jug, away from heat and direct sunlight. Properly stored kerosene has an indefinite shelf life. A 5-gallon jug kept in a cool basement will still burn cleanly 20 years from now. Component 3. The wick. Asterisk, the cotton wick is the single most important part of the lantern, and the cheapest. A replacement flat wick for a Dietz lantern costs between 60 cents and $1.50. A round wick for a center draft lamp costs $2 to $4. A mantle for a pressurized lamp costs $2. The wick must be trimmed correctly. This is the one skill the entire system depends on, and it is the skill that has been most thoroughly forgotten. The procedure is simple. Soak the new wick in kerosene for 15 minutes before first use. Insert it into the burner and let it draw fuel up for another 5 minutes. Light the wick, let it burn for 1 minute, then blow it out. Take a pair of sharp scissors and trim the charred top to a perfectly flat edge. This is called squaring the wick. After every 2 hours of use, blow out the lantern and trim again. A properly squared wick produces a clean, white flame with a thin blue base. An untrimmed wick produces black soot and a yellow smoky flame. This trimming was so universal that the phrase "trim the wick" was Depression-era shorthand for any small task that needed doing every evening. Today, it is forgotten, and 90% of the people who buy a vintage lantern and complain that it smokes have simply never been taught to trim a wick. Component 4. The placement and reflector. A single lantern placed on a flat surface in front of a polished reflector. Lights twice as much room as the same lantern placed in open space. The reflector concentrates and redirects the photons that would otherwise be wasted on the wall behind the lamp. Reflectors cost nothing. A polished metal pie tin works. A piece of household aluminum foil glued to a piece of cardboard works. A small mirror salvaged from any thrift store works best. Place the lantern 6 inches in front of the reflector. The light intensity in the room doubles. Hang one flat wick lantern in the kitchen. Place one center draft lamp on the dining room table. Set one Aladdin pressurized lamp in the living room or main reading area. That is 3 lanterns. Total cost, used, between $15 and $40. Total fuel cost for an entire winter of evening use, roughly $25. Total light, equivalent to a fully wired 3-room electrical lighting system. The system replaces the wired lighting circuit, the bulbs, the fixtures, the dimmers, the switches, the breakers, the monthly bill, the grid dependency, and the entire history of the Phoebus Cartel 4 components. Under $40, one time, lifetime of light. Walk into any farmhouse kitchen in rural Iowa, rural Kentucky, rural Vermont, or rural Texas in the year 1933, and you would have found the same fixture, hanging from the same hook above the same wooden table. A brass kerosene lantern, polished by hand, refilled every Sunday afternoon, trimmed every evening before supper. This was not a regional habit. It was the American household lighting system, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, from the swamps of Louisiana to the wheat fields of North Dakota for over 80 years. By 1935, only 10% of American farms had grid electricity. By 1945, after the Rural Electrification Act, that number rose to 40%. Until then, every meal was eaten by lantern light. Every book was read by lantern light. Every newborn was delivered by lantern light. Every sermon was prepared by lantern light. It worked, without complaint, without bills, without infrastructure, without permission. The Egyptians used vegetable oil lamps with cotton wicks beginning around 3000 BC. The Greeks refined the design. The Romans standardized it. The Arabs improved it during the Islamic Golden Age, around 800 AD, introducing pressurized brass burners that would later inspire the European mantle lamp. By the time the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth in 1620, oil lamp lighting was already 4,000 years old. It is not new technology. It is the oldest household technology in continuous human use, after fire itself, and it took a single hotel room in Geneva in December of 1924 to begin the campaign that erased it from the modern American mind in less than 50 years. For under $40, 3 vintage lanterns, a 5-gallon jug of kerosene, 4 replacement wicks, and a polished reflector, you can light an entire household indefinitely, starting tonight. With no grid, no bill, no contractor, and no corporation standing between you and the light, the complete system, including exact lantern models to look for at estate sales, fuel storage protocols, wick trimming diagrams, and the room-by-room placement plan that lit American homes for 80 years, is linked in the description below. It covers lighting, heating, cooking, food storage, and home repair. The full Depression-era manual in one place. Tomorrow, this channel will show you the $0 makeup formula every American woman used before 1948, and why the cosmetics industry spent $90 billion to make sure you never learned it. Every product in your home once had a $0 version. They buried it. Now you know.